He ended, and the heavenly audience loud sung hallelujah as the sound of seas through multitude that sung. Just are thy ways, righteous are thy decrees on all thy works. Who can extenuate thee? Next to the Son, destined restorer of mankind, by whom new heaven and earth shall to the ages rise, or down from heaven descend. Such was their song. While the Creator, calling forth by name his mighty angels, gave them several charge, as sorted best with present things. The sun had first his precepts so to move, so shine, as might affect the earth with cold and heat, scarce tolerable, and from the north to call decrepit winter, from the south to bring celestial summer's heat. To the blank moon her office they prescribed, to the other five their planetary motions and aspects, in sextile, square, and trine and opposite, of noxious efficacy, and when to join in synod unbenign, and taught the fixed their influence malignant when to shower, which of them rising with the sun or falling should prove tempestuous. To the winds they set their corners, when with bluster to confound sea, air, and shore, the thunder when to roll with terror through the dark aerial hall. Some say he bid his angels turn askance the poles of earth twice 10 degrees and more from the sun's axle. They with labor pushed oblique the centric globe. Some say the sun was bid turn reins from the equinoctial road like distant breath to Taurus, with the 7 Atlantic sisters and the Spartan twins, out to the tropic crab, thence down amain by Leo and the Virgin and the Scales, as deep as Capricorn, to bring in change of seasons to each clime. Else had the spring perpetual smiled on earth with verdant flowers, equal in days and nights, except to those beyond the polar circles. To them day had unbenighted shone, while the low sun, to recompense his distance in their sight, had rounded still the horizon, and not known or east or west, which had forbid the snow from coldest Stotaland, and south as far beneath Magellan. At that tasted fruit the sun, as from Thyestean banquet turned, his course intended. Else how had the world, inhabited, though sinless, more than now, avoided pinching cold and scorching heat? These changes in the heavens, though slow, produced like change on sea and land, sidereal blast, vapor and mist and exhalation hot, corrupt and pestilent. Now from the north of Norumbega and the Samoed shore, bursting their brazen dungeon, armed with ice and snow and hail and stormy gust and flaw, Boreas and Siesies and Arcestes loud and Thriasius rend the woods and seas upturn, with adverse blast upturns them from the south. Notice and Aphor black with thunderous clouds. From Sierra Leona, thwart of these as fierce forth rush the Levant and the potent winds, Eurus and Zephyr with their lateral noise, Sirocco and Libecchio. Thus began outrage from lifeless things. But discord first, daughter of sin among the irrational, death introduced through fierce antipathy. Beast now with beast gan war, and fowl with fowl, and fish with fish, to graze the herb, all leaving, devoured each other, nor stood much in awe of man, but fled him, or with countenance grim glared on him passing. These were from without the growing miseries which Adam saw, already in part, though hid in gloomiest shade, to sorrow abandoned, but worse felt within, and in a troubled sea of passion tossed, thus to disburden sought with sad complaint. O miserable of happy, is this the end of this new glorious world, and me so late the glory of that glory, who now become accursed of blessed? Hide me from the face of God, whom to behold was then my height of happiness. Yet well, if here would end the misery, I deserved it, and would bear my own deservings. But this will not serve. All that I eat or drink or shall beget is propagated curse. O voice once heard delightfully, increase and multiply, now death to hear. For what can I increase or multiply but curses on my head? Who of all ages to succeed, but feeling the evil on him brought by me, will curse my head, ill fare our ancestor impure. For this we may thank Adam, but his thanks shall be the execration. So besides mine own that bide upon me, all from me shall with a fierce reflux on me redound, on me as on their natural centre light heavy, though in their place. O fleeting joys of paradise, dear bought with lasting woes! Did I request thee, Maker, from my clay to mould me man? Did I solicit thee from the darkness to promote me, or here place in this delicious garden, as my will concurred not to my being? It were but right and equal to reduce me to my dust, desirous to resign and render back all I received, unable to perform thy terms too hard, by which I was to hold the good I sought not, to the loss of that sufficient penalty. Why hast thou added this sense of endless woes? Inexplicable thy justice seems. Yet to say truth too late I thus contest. Then should have been refused those terms whatever when they were proposed. Thou didst accept them. Wilt thou enjoy the good, then cavil the conditions? And though God made thee without thy leave, what if thy son prove disobedient, and reproved, retort, wherefore didst thou beget me? I sought it not. Wouldst thou admit for his contempt of thee that proud excuse? Yet him not thy election, but natural necessity begot. God made thee of choice his own, and of his own to serve him. Thy reward was of his grace, thy punishment then justly is at his will. Be it so, for I submit his doom is fair, that dust I am, and shall to dust return. O welcome hour whenever, why delays his hand to execute what his decree fixed on this day? Why do I overlive? Why am I mocked with death, and lengthened out to deathless pain? How gladly would I meet mortality, my sentence, and be earth insensible. How glad would lay me down as in my mother's lap. There I should rest and sleep secure. His dreadful voice no more would thunder in my ears. No fear of worse to me and to my offspring would torment me with cruel expectation. Yet one doubt pursues me still, lest all I cannot die, lest that pure breath of life, the spirit of man, which God inspired, cannot together perish with this corporeal clod, then in the grave or in some other dismal place, who knows, but I shall die a living death. O thought horrid if true, yet why? It was but breath of life that sinned. What dies but what had life and sin? The body properly hath neither. All of me then shall die. Let this appease the doubt, since humane reach no further knows. For though the Lord of all be infinite, is his wrath also? Be it, man is not so, but mortal doomed. How can he exercise wrath without end on man whom death must end? Can he make deathless death? That were to make strange contradiction, which to God himself impossible is held as argument of weakness, not of power. Will he draw out for anger's sake, finite to infinite, in punished man, to satisfy his rigor, satisfied never, that were to extend his sentence beyond dust and nature's law, by which all causes else according still to the reception of their matter act, not to the extent of their own sphere. But say that death be not one stroke, as I supposed, bereaving sense, but endless misery, from this day onward, which I feel begun both in me and without me, and so last to perpetuity. Ay me! That fear comes thundering back with dreadful revolution on my defenseless head. Both death and I am found eternal, and incorporate both, nor I on my part single. In me all posterity stands cursed. Fair patrimony that I must leave ye sons. O were I able to waste it all myself, and leave ye none, so disinherited, how would ye bless me now your curse? Why should all mankind for one man's fault thus guiltless be condemned, if guiltless? But from me what can proceed but all corrupt, both mind and will depraved, not to do only, but to will the same with me. How can they then acquitted stand in sight of God? Him after all disputes forced I absolve, all my evasions vain, and reasonings, though through mazes, lead me still but to my own conviction first and last. On me only, as the source and spring of all corruption, all the blame lights due. So might the wrath, fond wish, couldst thou support that burden heavier than the earth to bear, than all the world much heavier, though divided with that bad woman. Thus, what thou desirest and what thou fearest alike destroys all hope of refuge and concludes thee miserable, beyond all past, example, and future, to Satan only like, both crime and doom. O conscience, into what abyss of fears and horrors hast thou driven me, out of which I find no way, from deep to deeper plunged. Thus Adam to himself lamented loud, through the still night, not now, as ere man fell, wholesome and cool and mild, but with black air accompanied, with damps and dreadful gloom, which to his evil conscience represented all things with double terror. On the ground outstretched he lay, on the cold ground, and oft cursed his creation, death as oft accused of tardy execution, since denounced the day of his offense. Why comes not death, said he, with one thrice acceptable stroke to end me? Shall truth fail to keep her word? Justice divine not hasten to be just? But death comes not at call, justice divine, mends not her slowest pace for prayers or cries. O woods, O fountains, hillocks, dales, and bowers, with other echo late I taught your shades to answer and resound far other song. Whom thus afflicted when sad Eve beheld, desolate where she sat approaching nigh, soft words to his fierce passion she essayed, but her with stern regard he thus repelled.